Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a language video finally. And today I figured let's talk a little bit about the Norwegian language and the Norwegian country a little bit, because I've covered a lot on Sweden and the Swedish language, of course. Then I also made a video on the Danish language just recently, like a month or two ago, and which you can check out on my YouTube channel. And I figured, why not Norwegian now? Because we haven't really discussed or, talked that much about the Norwegian language. And I did mention the Norwegian language a few times in some of my Swedish or Danish videos, but not in such great details and lengths. So I kind of figured let's proceed from the Danish segment onto the Norwegian segment. And of course, I did a little bit of research, and by a little bit I mean like I didn't do such a huge, deep analysis of the Norwegian language. Of course, I picked a few things that could be relevant, could be informative and interesting for you, but I didn't go ultra deep into it. I'm not a philologist or any linguist. I'm not a certified linguist, so to speak. So, of course, if you have any corrections or anything to add, please feel free to write your comments, write your criticisms and mentions, whatever you feel like is relevant or important, of course. So, and I think it's also good to start off by saying that I visited Norway. So it was last year I visited Oslo, the capital of Norway, for a couple of days. Got to see the culture, the language, the places. The overall experience was pretty beautiful. I have to say the place, or like Norway, like the nature there is pretty similar to Switzerland in some ways, but I think you can kind of say that for many other places. I'm pretty sure Sweden and Finland, because they have a lot of forests, kind of looks the same. Or if there are some mountains in some other country, it also kind of looks the same like Switzerland. But I don't know, I just feel like Norway was a little bit similar to Switzerland in terms of nature and overall landscapes and stuff like that. So that is something that I was quite fascinated by. But of course, Switzerland and Norway are completely two different countries with two completely different languages and culture and norms and values and so on and so forth. So that was the only similarity I think I could really pick out, so to speak, between those two countries. And I think it's also good to start off by saying that Norway has two languages, sort of. So, or they have two standards for written Norwegian, let's say. So they have the Bokmal, or the Norsk Bokmal, and the Nynorsk. So the Nynorsk is basically New Norwegian, new standing for new, or ni, or new. Don't remember exactly how to pronounce it in the Norwegian way. And they have the Bokmal, which is kind of the book language, sort of. Basically, the Bokmal is the modernized version of the Danish written standard that was used until the first major language reform in 1907. So that was just about over 100 years ago that this came into existence, so to speak. And the Nynorsk was basically created by the linguist by the name of Ivar Aasen in the 1850s, based on various Norwegian dialects. And I guess the ultimate idea, or not I guess, but I know the essential idea of that was to kind of go away from the Danish influence, from the Danish culture. There was a big movement back in the early 1800s. The movement was basically to kind of get away from the Danish, and this movement was particularly fueled by a strong nationalistic need for cultural building after 1814, after they broke free from the Danish influence, Danish control, and they kind of wanted to Norwegify the Danish language. And of course, the Danish and Norwegian are still very mutual and very mutually intelligible. So meaning that you can understand another language without having to speak that language that you're in, basically. So if you're Norwegian and if I'm Norwegian and you're Danish, I can speak in my Norwegian and you can speak in your Danish, and we'll understand each other perfectly well without having to, for me to go over to Danish just because you speak Danish or vice versa. But of course, if you know that language, then it makes sense. But still, and the same thing is kind of with Swedish and Norwegian as well. So you don't have to, know that language fully, but you can still understand it. That's the whole point. So in short, they basically wanted to Norwegify that Danish language and make it kind of their own, and to kind of build their own culture and try to become distinct from Danish after being controlled and ruled over for many years and many decades, ultimately. Another thing that I noticed and witnessed, for that matter, is the fact that, and I think it's something what I talked a little bit about the Swedish language, but I think I got a few feedback saying that the Swedish isn't as, how would you say, jumpy. Like the language isn't like the intonation isn't as jumpy as the Norwegian. So what do I mean by that? So there's a saying that the Norwegian language is like a landscape. It kind of goes up and down. So they kind of start off by saying something, any particular sentence, it kind of goes up, but then it kind of stays up in some ways. They don't finish the sentence on a lower tone. They kind of do like this, kind of, in some ways. And this is something what I noticed is very common in Norway. Almost every Norwegian that I've encountered, heard, met, kind of spoke in that tone. Even when they were speaking English, I felt a little bit of that. So this is something that's, I guess, ingrained in their culture, in their way, in their mode of speaking that language, and it's something that it's become part of the Norwegian culture in some ways. Now, another interesting observation or research that I've conducted is the fact that now I'm not sure really if some of you people are Norwegian, please let me know. But apparently Norway has 3 official languages, and that's Bokmal, Nynorsk, like we just talked about, and Sami. Now I know Sami is an official language, but I didn't know that Bokmal and Nynorsk are like 2 separate official languages per se. And maybe you guys might want to elaborate a little bit on that, and maybe I should have done a bit more research on this. But I always thought that the Bokmal and the Nynorsk are like we kind of talked about 2 different, not really 2 different languages, because to me 2 different languages are like kind of separate. Like you can separate those languages, and they're different. They have different grammar rules, different vocabulary, and so on and so forth. But to me, it feels like Bokmal and Nynorsk are just 2 variations of Norwegian, but still the same language. It's like taking, it's like taking, for example, Switzerland is a little bit of a rough example, because we have, first of all, we have Standard German as an official language, apart from 3 others. But we also have Swiss German, and Swiss German, we don't have just Swiss German. We have like Bernese German, we have Zurich German, we have other Basel German, other parts of German dialects that come into play. So, and I feel like it's a little bit like that the Bokmal and Nynorsk, they're just 2 variations of Norwegian. One is more of a standard Norwegian, the other is more of a assimilation of all dialects from like across Norway, sort of. And essentially they are based on various Norwegian dialects, and so I'm not sure how this is really an official language, so you might want to help me out here for sure. And the last thing is that the Norwegian language is actually pretty simple, in particular than the Norwegian grammar, and it's kind of the same or kind of similar to the Swedish grammar. Also very simple, structure is very easy, it's very comprehensive. You don't have to go too much into detail. It's not like freaking French or something like that, where you gotta learn 1,000 different exceptions, and every exception has its own rule, kind of. It's a little bit more standardized, easily understandable. Of course, there are a few nuances you need to learn here and there, but I just remember I one time tried to pick up a little bit of Norwegian, but that was like a few years ago, many years ago, and it was pretty easily understandable. I mean, there's not much to really grasp on. You don't have to spend thousands of hours trying to memorize grammar rules or something like that. Maybe the only thing is that, was the et or en, but that was every language, the feminine, the masculine, articles, definite, indefinite, and so on and so forth. But that's with every language basically. But other than that, I think Norwegian is pretty simple, straightforward. And of course, if you know already one of the three languages, Swedish, Norwegian, or Danish, then of course you can learn the other corresponding language with greater ease than initially. So if you guys are interested in learning Norwegian, I can maybe give you a few sources, a few books to look at if you're highly interested, and if not, you can just do it yourself, in other words. So yeah, to just kind of conclude the whole Norwegian language and country discussion, I think overall it's a great country, a wonderful country. I'm definitely looking forward to going back there someday. Nature's beautiful, people are good. The food, I have to say, the food was not entirely impressive. Maybe I just chose or happened to be in the wrong place and at the wrong time. But I think for that I would have to go there again and try it out, and because I don't want to jump too quickly into conclusions and judge too quickly about the Norwegian food, and just could be by pure luck or unluck that I happen to not choose the right the right place or the right time or something like that. Or maybe I wasn't aware of some particular dishes or restaurants. So I think I have to kind of revisit Norway and go there again to see if the food is actually good or bad. But I mean, there were a few dishes that were okay, but I wouldn't say it was like grandiose. I do have to say that in Denmark the food was much better. I think I mentioned that once in one of my videos, but I'm not gonna start comparing here countries. And also the Norwegian language it's way more understandable than the Danish, especially coming from a Swedish student, so to speak. So I think that's been mentioned many times. And yeah, so if you have any questions, and I hope some of you are Norwegian, to give me some feedback or to give this topic some feedback and comment. Overall, I hope you have a wonderful day, and as always, feel free to leave any more remarks or any more suggestions, topics, things I should talk about in the upcoming videos, and I'll see you in the next one. Have a great day.